mean, not anything specific about it, no.
Have you talked to Paul Bowden about anything related to the case?
No, I was going to say, I know Paul Bowden. I know him personally. I saw Paul at the trial, but I don't remember talking to him about anything to do with these charges or anything like that.
Do you remember having any conversations with him about the reports from Leah Leitner, or I should say the summaries from Leah Leitner, or the report?
I don't remember talking to Paul about that. I remember talking to the other prosecutors about those, because that's where I saw them.
So the first time you recall speaking with the district attorneys about the information in the file is when they contacted you and said, hey, we've got these things in the file, can you talk to us about this?
No, I mean, it didn't quite, it didn't unfold like that. I learned about this issue the day that the arrests were announced, because I learned from the Pauls. Okay, I've already testified. I mean, I called Janice Paul myself the next morning, or from the Daytona 500 of all places. And so I knew what had happened. I didn't know about the specific reports, and then until maybe I learned from GBI agents that once they went back and went through the file and were able to, and they didn't find those documents right away after that announcement of that arrest. I don't think they found those documents in the file till days later at least. And then, so I learned about it then, but the first time I actually saw the documents was just at a pre-trial preparation for the previous, or I guess all these cases. The first time I ever met at the DA's office. So then I saw their copies of our documents. That's way too much explanation. That's how it happened.
Were you aware in February of 2017 that a search had been conducted of an orchard in Fitzgerald?
Oh, yeah.
And that Mr. Duke and Mr. Dukes had provided information about the location of where Mr. Grinstead was?
Generally, I knew. I didn't go down there, but I knew generally what had happened.
And that it was in Ben Hill County?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I knew that.
Okay. So, as of February of 2017, based on what you knew about the case facts and about the search of that property in Ben Hill County, was there probable cause to arrest Mr. Duke or Mr. Dukes for concealment of a body in Ben Hill County?
Was there probable cause based on the information that they had then? I didn't have that information myself. I mean, based on how things have transpired and the information I know, I would presume, I would think that there might have been probable cause to make an arrest or take an arrest warrant out.
Based on the fact that Mr. Duke and Mr. Dukes had walked the property, they had given statements to the police, and they knew the location of the body being burned in Ben Hill County, they could have, it's your opinion that probable cause existed to arrest them for concealment in Ben Hill County?
Well, that's not always how it works. Sometimes you have, in this case, maybe you have a major offense, and you take the arrest warrants for the major offense, for murder or whatever it is, and secondary, I won't call it secondary, but other associated charges, you may wait until the district attorney or whatever prosecutor decides what charges are appropriate or viable. So, in our, it depends on the case as to, how many warrants you take. In other words, sometimes we will just take the big warrant, the major crime, and then let the prosecutors review the file to decide what other charges are there. I don't know how it went down in this case. I wasn't part of it.
If Mr. Duke told the district attorneys and law enforcement, including GBI, in February of 2017, that he had assisted in concealing Ms. Grinstead's death by watching a burning of a body in Ben Hill County, would that have constituted probable cause for you to make an arrest of Mr. Duke for concealment in Ben Hill County?
I guess that the facts would have supported probable cause. I just don't know how that happened. Because you're not obligated to take an arrest warrant because you have probable cause.
I understand that, but the facts would have given you probable cause to make the arrest if that was
based on, I think that's when the bulk of the investigative activity is done. But once again, I wasn't there, so I don't know exactly what they knew then, but it makes sense.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have. Sorry, my better half has a question. You mentioned a meeting after the Irwin County verdict. Who was present when you heard about all of this stuff related to
this was kind of organic. you know, I just was in the room, you know, I've been around jury trials as you have, you know, when you post verdict, you meet with the family or whoever, which is involved, and so it was kind of in that recovery period after a trial was over, that this revelation, I call it revelation, became wait a minute, the statute has not run. It was presumed the statute had run, but because of COVID, the statute had been told, and so it hadn't expired yet. So I mean, I was there then, but the sequence of events or whatever, it's just kind of an organic revelation.
Was Jason Shadell there?
I think Jason might have been there. It was just in the grand jury room or whatever in the courthouse.
Was Ms. Hart there?
Yes.
Was Mr. Rigby there?
Yes.
Was Mr. Bowden there?
Yes.
Were any members of Ms. Grinstead's family there?
Yes.
Were any other law enforcement personnel present?
Chief Hancock might have been there.
Chief Hancock for Ocilla PD?
Yeah.
Anybody from the sheriff's office?
No, I don't think there was anybody. I don't recall anybody else, except for maybe Agent Shadell. Yeah, I don't think Agent Shadell he might not even been there.
You don't know one way or the other?
Well, no. I mean, the more I think about it, I think Jason may not have been there that day. I'm not sure. I don't recall. I'm pretty sure Chief Hancock was there, and I was there, the family was there, the prosecutors were there, and maybe Nita Gaddis and Larry Gaddis. I think that's who was there.
Any other district attorneys there?
Not that I remember.
Anybody named Bryce?
Who? Oh, yeah, the current DA.
Was he there?
Yeah, I don't know him well. Yeah, but he might. I don't know if he was there or not. I spent most of my time waiting in the prosecutor's office, so he was around, but I don't remember if he was there at that particular time. I wouldn't be surprised if he was. I just don't remember.
Without disclosing what anybody actually said, who, based on your perspective, who was leading that discussion?
I don't think it was a lead. I think I remember Ms. Hart realizing and then doing the math. Kind of like I remember making kind of an explanation. Well, wait a minute, because it had been presumed that the statute had run. And whatever charging decision was made before that, I don't have anything to do with it. But the statute hadn't run on that offense that he had provided evidence to support prosecuting him for in his own testimony. So that's what kind of brought it back to the forefront. But I just remember the revelation and then doing some math on the timeline. That's all, and that's what I know. But that's lawyer stuff. I'm not stupid, but I don't get in the weeds about it, to use that phrase again.
And the revelation that you described, that happened after the verdict.
It happened in my recollection, is at least what I saw was in the grand jury room right after the verdict.
Thank you, sir. That's all I have.
Nothing further of this witness, Judge.
All right, you can step down.
May he be excused, Judge?
Any objection to the witness being excused?
Judge, we have an objection.
Mr. Mullins?
No, Your Honor.
All right, you're excused. You call your name, please.
State will call Jason Shadell to the stand. I want you to raise your right hand, please, sir. Do you swear or affirm the testimony before this court be truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, put your hand up. Let me get you to introduce yourself to the court.
Jason Shadell,
And how are you currently employed?
Special Agent with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation.
How long have you been employed with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation?
Going on 16 years.
And prior to being employed with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, did you work in law enforcement in any other capacity?
I was a deputy sheriff with the Thomas County Sheriff's Office from 1999 to 2007.
So all total, how long have you been a post-certified law enforcement officer?
Almost 24 years.
Now, tell me again when it was that you came to work for the GBI?
And I was hired September of 2007. I was assigned to the Region 13 field office in December the 20th of 2007 is when I reported for duty at the field office after our initial training with GBI.
And that particular field office, where is that physically located?
Perry, Georgia.
And how long were you in the Perry, Georgia office?
Until May of 2019.
And currently, what is your job assignment with the GBI?
I'm a polygraph examiner for the GBI.
And to become a polygraphist, did you have to have certain training above and beyond what you had had previously as a special agent?
Correct. A 10-week school plus another 3 to 6 month FDA process minimum with our GBI polygraph unit.
Okay. At some point on or after December 20th, 2007, when you reported to the office in Perry, did you become the lead agent on the Tara Grinstead missing person case?
I did.
Prior to being assigned as the lead agent, had you had an occasion to assist in that investigation at all that you can recall?
Yes.
Okay. And do you recall when it was that you were made the lead agent in the case? Approximately.
Initially, it was sometime mid-September or mid-2009, I think. Gary Rothwell was the SAC at the time. He was finishing out for handling primarily most of the leads for that first year or so. After I became assigned, he was following up things because Leah had left as the prior case agent. So he then was running out most of the leads that she had been finishing with or working on. I don't think my first real set of leads to run out was probably March of 2010.
Okay. So at least as of March of 2010, or around that time period, you would have been the lead agent?
Correct. I was assigned the case as the case agent once Leah left our office. It was sometime in 2009, I remember.
And then from March of 2010 until the arrest, or through the arrest of Ryan and Bo Dukes, did you remain the lead case agent?
I did.
And during the time prior to Gary Rothwell's retirement in 2012, was he your supervisor as it related to this particular case?
Correct. While he was there, yes.
After after Agent Rothwell retired, who would have been the supervisor in the Perry office? The supervisors.
There were two. The first one was Rodney Wall. The second one was J.T. Ricketts.
And would those have been the special agents in charge, respectively? Okay. Before we get into 2017, I want to ask you if during the time period in which you worked on the case, were you ever aware of persons having either confessed themselves to killing Tara Grinstead or having confessed to having known other persons to have killed Tara Grinstead?
A couple, yes.
Are you familiar with the name Kenya King?
I am.
And I'm not tender. I'm just going to show it to him and ask a question. Thank you. In preparation for your testimony today, have you had a chance to review some of the 4,000 summaries or 4,000 pages of summaries that are in the case file?
Some, yes.
Do you recall ever having dealt with a situation of a website known as www.grouphug.us?
The name is familiar. I think initially that was done by Spence Barron and Gary at the time were the initial agents that handled that. I think when some of the emails or whatever we requested came in, I think I was the one that placed it into the case file.
Okay. Do you, and again, without going into much detail, do you recall why the website www.grouphug.us became relevant to Tara's case?
I don't.
If I show you at least one of your summaries, do you think that might refresh your recollection?
Definitely is.
please don't read from that, it's not evidence, but take a look at that and see if that refreshes your recollection on what was relevant about grouphud.us.
Okay. Okay.
Having read that, does that refresh your recollection on why that website became relevant to Tara Grinstead's case?
Yes, ma'am.
And why did that become relevant to Tara Grinstead's case?
It was a posted confession of her kidnapping.
And based on
And
your,
murder.
I'm sorry?
And murder.
Based on your understanding of that particular case or the allegation of a confession there, were efforts made to track down whoever would have posted that particular alleged confession?
Yeah.
And again, is that something that you did follow up on but never able to arrest anyone?
If I recall, yeah, I think there were some follow-ups to it, and I recall maybe posting a summary that nothing was able to be located to ascertain where that came from.
Okay. When you took over the case in 2010, can you tell me, was that already a large case file at the time?
Yes.
And as it sits today, do you know how that case file compares to every other case file at the GBI?
As I've been told, it was the largest case file in GBI history per volume and size.
And we've referenced nearly 4,000 summaries. It's probably over that now. Is that all that exists in this case file, or just 4,000 pages of GBI summaries?
No, there's all sorts of things that were collected over the years besides summaries.
Okay. When you took over the case, and I'm just going to reference the March of 2010, which is when you really took the lead, did you read every single document that was in that case file?
No.
Did you read every single summary that had been done by prior agents in that case file?
No.
Okay. The system that would have been in use in 2010 for the GBI, is it the same system that's in use currently for your files?
Yes, JIMNet.
Okay. And just for our court reporter, can you spell that?
JIMNET.
Okay. And that particular program, are you pretty familiar with how it works?
Mostly.
Okay. At least in 2010, when you took over the case, was there a function by which you could search every single summary for any name that had ever been mentioned?
You could search this. You could search it for any name that had been mentioned as far as where an ID data was attached to it.
Okay.
So if I were to collect a person's identification data pertaining to a summary or something like this, and then place that into the GIMNet system, you could search for that. However, if you didn't have the name into the ID data form, it would not populate.
Judge, may I collect some of those exhibits from earlier? Yeah.
Okay, sure.
I want to look at a few exhibits that have already been tendered into evidence and speak with you about those. I'm going to show you first, not to leave your glasses on for me, State's Exhibit 1 that's already been tendered. And I'm going to ask you, do you recognize States 1?
Yes.
Prior to the arrest of Ryan Duke in 2017, do you recall ever having seen that particular document?
No.
Do you recall when you first became aware of the existence of that document?
It would have been a couple of weeks after their arrest.
After whose arrest?
Bo and Ryan.
Do you?
Ryan, excuse me.
Okay. And that particular document, I know the judges had a chance to see it, but what are we talking about?
This is looks like a copy of, as I understand it, again, I wasn't originally assigned to this case during its inception, but apparently there was a local affiliate, a sheriff's office, something that was maintaining a location where tips would come in and so on and so forth. So when I located this particular document, it was in a brown folding, if you want to call it a notebook. It wasn't attached to the case file, it was attached. It was in with the case file, but it was up underneath some of the folders where all the case file documents were. And so having the benefit of knowing about some of these approximation times once we started following out the leads after learning of certain people that had been making comments about this with Bo and Ryan's name being associated with it, that's when I started looking this at particular dates. Okay, I know a particular date now to look in. And so that's when I noticed this for the first time after that.
To your knowledge, Do you know of anyone else at the GBI who ever read that particular document, State's Exhibit 1, before you?
No.
And would you have read that before or after Ryan's arrest in 2017?
This was after.
And just so we can kind of clarify, because I know we've talked about it so much, we assume everybody knows, but to clarify, when you're saying that you had some other interviews, by the time you read that document, had you become aware of the fact that Garland Lott had gone to Janice and Andy Paulk back in 2005?
Right, that's what led to this, me locating this, was finding that out after the fact.
That particular document, I know that's all we're looking at in evidence, but did Alan Morgan write other reports related to his assistance in searching for Tara?
I just know there was other reports in there. I'm not sure who actually wrote them.
Okay. That particular report, was it focused only on the interview or possible interview that he did with Janice and Andy Paulk in 2005?
This particular, about the folder, the whole folder?
No, that report, does it focus only on a tip that came into Andy and Janice? Or are there other things in there?
Appears to be other as well. The one that references that the incident involving Bo and O'Brien was, it looks like the last summary on this page.
Okay. Looking at that report, okay, just looking at what is contained within that report, is the name Garland Lott mentioned?
No.
Just looking at that report, does it indicate whether or not any law enforcement officers attempted to locate physical evidence based on the tip that came in?
It just said there was, the area was checked by me and GSP Aviation Unit, unable to locate burn pile at that location, and the area around it was checked and nothing found.
Okay. Understanding it doesn't use the name Garland Lott, how does it identify the person who gave this information?
It said that the information was provided by Andy and his wife Janice.
And where did they receive the information?
As of this particular time, what I actually know,
No. Just based on what's in that report.
it doesn't say. It just said that the subject named Bo Dukes was at a party drinking. He told people that Ryan Duke of Fitzgerald had shown up at the orchard in Fitzgerald with the body of Tara Grinstead.
Okay. It doesn't say who told that to Janice and Andy Paulk?
Correct.
Okay. Is there anything in there about whether it was a male or a female who told that to Janice Paulk and Andy Paulk?
No.
Okay. Just looking at that report, what is contained within that report, based on your years in law enforcement, based solely on what's in that report, would you have been able to seek a warrant for Bo Duke's arrest?
No.
Would you have probable cause to seek a warrant for Ryan Duke's arrest?
Judge, I would object. It's not relevant. It's not relevant in the case law what he subjectively would believe as far as whether or not he can seek a warrant. That's a decision for you to make.
Ma'am, Judge. Again, the question comes down to what a reasonable officer, what officers who have worked the case, their opinions on it is certainly something the court can consider as it relates to whether or not it's reasonable.
I want him to have answer as to what he would have done,
Correct. Thank you,
not
Judge.
anybody else.
Based on solely what's in that report, do you believe you would have had probable cause to issue an arrest warrant for Ryan Duke?
No.
Moving on to State's Exhibit 2. I want you to take a look at that for me and tell me, have you ever seen that before?
Yes.
When is the first time you recall seeing that particular summary by Leah Leitner?
I'm not sure the exact date, but it was post Ryan Duke's arrest.
Okay. And we talked earlier about how GymNet works, and you mentioned something about there being ID data. Using that particular document, can you explain to us what you mean by ID data versus just someone's name being in the report?
Sure. So when we collect a person's identification data, this is going to be name, social security number, date of birth, address, phone number, identifying information, identifying that particular person. Because there's people in the world that have the same name, but we'll identify them further with their name, social security number, date of birth, all those things that are individually identified by that particular person.
Okay.
Which is how, when you look at the back of this summary where it says ID data, this is the ID data that this summary was linked to as when the summary was created.
Okay, so let me ask you, prior to the arrest of Ryan Duke, if you had done a search in GymNet for the name Ryan Duke, would it locate that report in your GymNet system?
No,
Why not?
because his identification data was never entered into our GymNet system.
Based on looking at that report, if you had put in the name of Janice Polk, would it have pulled up that report?
Yes,
Why is that?
because our identification data was linked to that particular report, which is how I located it to begin with.
Okay. And looking at this particular document, let's say that other people that are listed, Marcus Harper, for instance, is listed in here a couple of times. If you had put in a search for Marcus Harper's name, would it have pulled up that report?
Yes, at the time, yes.
In GymNet?
Yes.
Why would it have pulled up Marcus's name on that report?
When I come out for like this particular name, it would have pulled up any summary that was associated where his ID data was linked to that particular summary.
Okay.
So this summary would have been linked to Janice Polk
Okay.
when we put it into GymNet, and so it's only linked to Janice Polk. So the summary itself would only, for Marcus, would only show the summaries where his name was actually linked to that particular summary. So if his name was linked to this summary in GymNet, it would have populated this one as well.
Based on the ID data at the end of that, though, does it appear his name was linked to it?
Yeah.
Okay. And you mentioned earlier that's how you found that summary. So can you explain to us how it was that you actually found the summary that is State's Exhibit 2?
Once after the arrests were made in the case, we started hearing other information, rumors. The name Garland Lott has been mentioned. So an interview or some kind of connection to Garland Lott.
Okay.
So I tried to do a search for Garland and identify anything with Garland. I don't think I found anything originally, and then we started reaching out to other people, and well, you know, that information may have come from Janice and Andy. I think they may have known about it. So then I looked up Janice and Andy Polk, their names, and then as I started reading the summaries associated with their names is when I identified this summary.
Okay. And in fact, are you aware of the fact that Garland Lott's name is listed in other summaries outside of these two that were done by Janice and Andy?
Judge, I object, that's the name.
Are you aware?
Are you aware? And then she asked something that's a leading question.
I asked a specific question, but it's...
I sustain the objection. Restate the question.
Was Garland Lott's name mentioned in any other summaries prior to the arrest of Ryan Duke other than State's Exhibit 2 and then also the one involving Andy Polk?
I'm not familiar with that.
Okay. Would taking a look at the case file digitally allow you to answer that question?
Judge, while we do that, may I take a very quick back?
Sure.
Okay, so I think that may take a while. I'm permitted to do that one, we're not sure where the closest one is.
I'm sorry?
Which restroom is the closest for you to use?
Close one.
Thank you. I've seen it much.
Keep GymNet on there. I have a computer with GymNet.
talk yet until she gets back. Having had a chance now to look at a digital copy of your case file, specifically exhibit number, I believe it was 1751, completely off. Okay. So looking at exhibit 1751 of the case file, does that refresh your recollection on whether or not Garland Lott's name was ever in the case file other than the Andy Paulk and Janice Paulk interviews?
Correct. His name is mentioned.
And what is, who actually did the summary that you're talking about that's refreshing your recollection?
I did.
And what year was that?
2010.
Okay. So in 2010, well, let me ask this first. This particular summary, however, does it have anything to do with Ryan Duke?
No.
Does it have anything to do with voting?
No.
Does it have anything to do with anything Garland Lott may have told Janice or Andy Paulk in 2005?
No.
Was it a completely different issue related to Tara?
Correct.
And before right now, did you even know that Garland's name was in there for other reasons?
No. That completely refreshed my memory.
And based on having seen that, when you would have done a ID data search for Garland Lott in 2017 after the arrest, would you have seen that summary in GymNet?
No.
Why not?
Because I didn't have his ID data.
And when you say you didn't have his ID data, that particular summary, did it reference his ID data at all?
No.
Show you State's Exhibit 3 and ask you if you recognize that.
I do.
And what do you recognize that to be?
This is a summary conducted by Leah Leitner with Andy Paulk on July 15, 2008.
Do you recall if you had ever seen that particular report prior to the arrest of Ryan Duke in 2017?
I did not.
How was it that you became aware of that particular report?
Just as I stated earlier, when I started finding out more about this particular rumor, things that had been said about it, when I started doing the searches on Janice and Andy, this is when I found and read these summaries involving Andy and Janice, which is when I became aware of this.
So let's go back to State's Exhibit 2 and talk about what information is actually contained within that summary. Is the name Garland Lott contained within the summary that Leah Leitner did after having spoken with Janice Paulk in 2008?
That's already been admitted in evidence, and I looked at it. I'm not sure why we're going back over it again.
I can move on, but the reason I was going back over it again is because he would have been the agent at the time of the arrest, and the question is not, so what we've covered is prior from 2012 back. I've not met my burden at this point in talking about anything from 2012 forward.
I know you asked him about was Garland Knott's name in there, and I looked at it, and I know whether it is or not. And so, I mean.
So then let me ask it this way. Having had a chance to review that report, State's Exhibit 2, the summary of Leah Leitner, based on your years in law enforcement, having read that, would you have had probable cause to issue a warrant or to request a warrant for the arrest of Ryan Duke based solely on what's in that report?
I would not.
Again, I object, it's not relevant.
Your objection is overruled.
Based solely on that report, would you have had probable cause to seek a warrant for Bo Dukes?
I would not.
Based solely on what's in that report, would you have had probable cause even to believe that Tara Grinstead was deceased?
No.
Moving on to Andy Pauks, which is State's Exhibit 3. Same questions. Based on what is contained within Andy Pauks' report, summary that Leah Leitner did based on speaking with Andy Pauk, would you have had probable cause to issue a warrant for the arrest of Ryan Duke?
No.
Would you have had probable cause to issue a warrant for the arrest of Bo Dukes?
Objection, same for Ryan.
Your objection is noted as a standing objection, and I will.
Would you have had even probable cause to believe that Tara Grinstead was not alive?
No.
Okay. So let's skip forward then and talk about 2016. In 2016, did you have an occasion to interview someone by the name of John McCullough?
I did.
And do you recall the date on which you interviewed John McCullough?
June the 14th, 2016.
Okay. And was that an in-person interview or was that over the phone?
Telephone.
How was it that you wound up being having an interview with John McCullough over the phone?
I believe that he had called our office requesting to speak to an agent in reference to Tara's case. Didn't say what it was about, but just said he had information regarding the Grinstead investigation and was requesting an agent to reach out to him, which is what I did.
And when you spoke with John McCullough, what did he tell you as it related to the information that he had on Tara Grinstead's case?
He said that in...
Hello, I just wanted to give a little recap. My name is Lorenza Medley. I am currently filling in for Jamie, who had to step away for a moment. I wanted to give a little recap of what just happened in the trial at the moment. So they have questioned Gary Rothwell as well as Jason Shadell. Gary Rothwell was the GBI special agent in charge for Perry, and he was spoken to mainly about just documents and charges for Jason, and then Jason was questioned mainly on probable cause for arresting Terry Grinstead, for believing that Terry Grinstead was deceased. Sorry. All right, and so Jason, he is the special agent at the GPI. He is currently a polygraphist, and he was the main lead agent in September 2009 when he would have been the lead of the case. All right, and then most recently they talked to Jason about a man named Johnny McCullough. He was someone he interviewed over the phone regarding the case. All right, and then I am going to toss back to the courtroom. Give me 1 second.
Bo Dukes had told him the location of where her body was burned.
No.
Did John McCullough tell you whether or not Bo Dukes had ever related to you how she was murdered?
Objection, this is all leading.
Restate your question.
Did he ever give you any information that Bo Dukes would have given him about how, I don't know how to restate that, Judge, sorry, it's not a leading question. I'm trying to be clear that I'm not talking about what Bo said to him. What John McCullough said to you, did he have any information from Bo about how she was killed?
No.
Okay. After having interviewed Mr. McCullough, did you make an effort to follow up on the information he had given you? No, there's nothing leading about that question.
What was the objection?
Objection leading. She said, "Did you do this?"
Overruled.
Did you have an occasion to follow up on the information John McCullough gave you?
I did.
And what did you do?
I interviewed Bo. I found his location. I think I talked to his mother on the phone, trying to identify where he might be located. I think he called me back, something to that effect, and we made arrangements to have him conduct an interview on the morning of June the 16th. I think it was around 7 or so o'clock in the morning at the Rochelle Police Department.
Okay. And what did Bo Dukes tell you, if anything, about John McCullough?
He said that it was very possible that Mr. McCullough, I don't think he even remembered his name, had come back with him during the time he was in basic training. So he would have identified that, yeah, Mr. McCullough probably was here with him, but he denied that there was any talk of terror.
Okay. At that point, did you request any DNA from Mr. Bo Dukes?
I did.
And what did he say when you requested it?
He said he just allowed me. I had a consent form, asked him that I'd like to get a sample of his DNA to compare to some evidence located during the case. He had no problem in signing the consent form, provided a sample of his DNA. The interview was concluded at that point.
Okay.
He left.
What did you do with the sample of his DNA that you collected from him?
Sealed it per policy and sent it to the GBI Crime Lab for analysis.
Do you know if it was analyzed?
It was
Do you know what the results were?
negative as to the glove.
That was going to be my next question. During the time that you were investigating the case, had you had an occasion to collect other DNA swabs?
Yes.
What was the purpose of collecting DNA swabs in this case?
To compare to the glove which had been collected at Ms. Grinstead's house during the inception of the criminal investigation.
Okay. After having interviewed Mr. Dukes and having received the results from the GBI Crime Lab, did you do anything further in 2016 to follow up on the lead John McCullough had given you?
Yeah.
Okay. In 2016, after having spoken with Mr. McCullough and followed up on those leads, did you determine whether or not you believed you had probable cause to arrest Bo Dukes?
I did not.
You did not determine that, or you did not have probable cause?
probable cause to arrest Mr. Dukes.
Okay. Based on the information that John McCullough gave you and your follow-up investigation, did you have probable cause to know that Tara Grinstead was not alive?
No.
Did Bo Dukes' name come up again after the 2016 investigation we discussed?
Yes.
And when was that?
January of 2017.
Okay. How was it that you first became aware of, in 2017, of Bo Dukes being involved?
A gentleman by the name of, his last name is Whipple, I think it's Doug Whipple, had called our office. He was friends with Brooke Sheridan, who was, according to him, girlfriend or ex-girlfriend of Mr. Dukes at the time, and that allegedly Mr. Dukes had told Brooke about that same rumor about burning her body, but not killing her.
Okay. And I just want to clarify, did Mr. Whipple indicate to you that he heard Bo say that, or he heard someone else say that?
Brooke told him, so it was second hand from Brooke to, third hand from Brooke to, or from Bo to Brooke to Doug.
Okay. And after having gotten that information from Mr. Whipple, well, let me ask you this. Let me go back. John McCullough, at any point did he ever use the name Ryan Duke?
No.
After having interviewed Mr. Whipple, were you aware of the actual name of Ryan Duke?
No.
After interviewing Mr. Whipple, did you do anything in response to the statement he had given you?
I asked him to reach out to Brooke and have her get in touch with us or try to get in touch with us. He was her friend, so I was trying to where she would come to us and talk to us about this information. So I asked him to reach back out to her and have her get in touch with us so we could talk with her and interview her.
Did you ever interview Brooke Sheridan?
I did.
And do you recall the date that you interviewed Brooke Sheridan?
February the 7th,
Of what year?
2017.
Okay. Where did that interview take place?
I believe at her parents' house in Cary.
What did Brooke Sheridan tell you, if anything, about Tara Grinstead?
She told me that she and Bo had some relationship issues, and that as they were having these problems, Bo talked to her about doing something terrible, and ended up taking her to the orchard in Fitzgerald here and disclosing to her that he had assisted in destroying Grinstead's body and burning her body, and that he told her that he didn't do it, but he knew who did. She said that he had told her the name, but she couldn't remember the name exactly. She gave several variations of the name, so nothing concrete at the time. After the interview was concluded, I asked her to bring me to the orchard, which she did. She took me exactly to the location where Bo had brought her on that particular day, and that said that this is where he disclosed, what had happened, and that he walked off into the woods, down a little path into the pine trees, and then came back out, and then they left.
Okay.
That's what she said.
At the time that you interviewed Brooke Sheridan, what was the nature of her relationship with Bo Dukes?
They were ex-boyfriend and girlfriend at the time. She indicated that they were not together at that particular time.
Okay. The information that she gave you about Bo Dukes having been involved with burning Tara Grinstead's body, did it match the information that you had received previously from John McCullough?
Yes.
Were there any discrepancies that you can recall specifically?
Off the top of my head, it was fairly similar in nature as to the burning of the body. It was consistent with that. He burned the body, he didn't kill her, but he did help burn the body.
Okay.
As I recall.
As of the meeting with Brooke Sheridan, did you know the precise name of the person who was alleged to have actually killed Miss Grinstead?
No.
You talked about her taking you out to the orchard, and I know that we commonly refer to it as the orchard just because it's easier, but let's talk about that a little bit so the court is aware of what we're talking about. The location of where Miss Grinstead's body is later found, is it actually, in 2017, was it actually within the orchard itself?
No.
Where was it in connection to the orchard?
It was located in a pine tree grove adjacent to the orchard.
Any idea how far it would have been from the actual orchard back in 2017?
From the location that we entered into the pine tree grove originally during that time, I would say several hundred yards-ish. I mean, we didn't measure, but I would say at a walking distance, a couple hundred yards.
When you say that Brooke took you to the exact location, let me ask you this. Did Brooke take you to the location where Tara Grinstead's remains were later found?
No.
Where did she take you?
This was at that entrance. So the pine tree grove was adjacent to the pecan orchard. So if you went to the back of the pecan orchard and followed that line down to where it ended, it then ended into a pine tree grove where pine trees were planted. There was a little dirt lane that offset that pine tree or pecan orchard that went into the pine tree grove. And so if you would go down that dirt lane into the pine tree grove is where her body remains are actually located. However, where Brooke stopped me was at the entrance to that road. So we were actually in the pecan orchard, but not into the pine tree grove.
Was Brooke Sheridan able to give you the actual location of where Miss Grinstead's remains were later found?
Yeah.
based on the information that Brooke Sheridan gave you in her interview, did you run out and get an arrest warrant for Bo Dukes?
No.
What did you do?
I asked her I gave her a digital recorder and asked her to try to corroborate some of the things that she had identified that Bo had told her. Again, to talk about the case, clandestinely record her and Bo talking about what he had disclosed to her allegedly.
Did she ever provide you with that?
No.
Did she ever provide you later on with the name of the person who allegedly she was saying had murdered Tara Grinstead?
No.
Did you ever interview Bo Dukes?
Yes.
Okay. So let's talk about the first time you actually met Mr. Dukes. Do you recall what that date was?
June 16, 2016.
Forgot about that, sorry. But let me go back. Did you interview him again and meet with him again after the June 2016 interview?
Twice.
The first meeting that you had, where did that occur?
The GBI office in Perry,
And what was that date?
February the 19th,
Of what year?
2017.
And who was present at the GBI office during that time period?
Mr. Dukes, his attorney, Mr. John Fox, Ms. Schwalls, I believe her name was, Paul Bowden, Brad Rigby, and myself.
Did you do a full interview of Bo Dukes that day as it related to Tara Grinstead's murder?
No.
Did you speak with him at least summarily?
Yes.
What did he tell you, if anything, about Miss Grinstead's murder that date?
He said that the person responsible for her murder was Ryan Duke. He identified, I had already taken, based on what Brooke had shown us, as far as the orchard, I had gone with the GSP aviation unit and taken aerial photographs of that general area. He identified the general area, verifying Brooke's statement, as well as generally where her remains could be located, and that we arranged a secondary interview. At the time, we just didn't have a lot of resources because it was very quick that this was happening, so we wanted to make sure we had enough resources to follow up on whatever information he was going to provide us. And so that's all we talked about that particular Sunday.
Yes, sir.
And then we followed up again on February the 21st, which is the full interview with both.
Okay. Prior to that Sunday, when Bo Dukes gives you the name of Ryan Duke, did you have enough information prior to that to figure out who they were talking about had murdered Tara Grinstead?
No, not prior.
After having spoken with Mr. Duke on that Sunday, did you rush out and get arrest warrants for Ryan Duke?
No.
What did you do, if anything, as it related to Ryan Duke?
I contacted the GBI intelligence unit and began running information trying to identify him further as much as I could possibly identify him. Criminal history information, basic intelligence information about him, so that when we got to that point, we could start running more leads on Ryan to identify where he's located, can we interview him, so on and so forth.
Okay. And were you able to figure out his information?
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever speak with Ryan Duke?
Not until that Tuesday, the 21st.
Of?
2017.
And what month? Sorry.
It was February the 21st, 2017. I'm not sure exact time, it was that afternoon.
Okay. And where did that particular conversation take place?
At Ryan's residence.
Did you actually interview him that day?
No, we were just contacting him, letting him know that we wanted to have an interview with him, to try to arrange an interview with him. And then the arrangements were made to have an interview with him on the following day, which was the 22nd.
And did you interview him on the 22nd?
I did.
Where did that interview take place?
Osceola Police Department.
And did he give you a statement related to Tara Grinstead's murder?
He did.
What did he tell you about Tara Grinstead's murder?
He said that he was the one responsible for her murder. He said that he was at the time burglarizing residences in the area because he had a drug addiction problem, a drug problem. He said that initially she surprised him in the residence. He struck her and killed her, he thought. He said he left the residence at that point and went back to his residence in Fitzgerald, where he collected latex gloves and a quilt to come back to the house and remove the body and remains. He said on the way back to her residence that he called her residence from the G&G store, specifically from the G&G store payphone. Nobody answered the phone. He went to the residence, he recovered her body, and left and took it out to the orchard.
The statement that Ryan Duke gave you at the Osceola Police Department, how did it compare to the interview that Bo Dukes gave you in 2017?
How do you mean?
Well, were they similar or not similar?
Most of the stories were very similar, yes.
Based on Ryan Dukes' statement corroborating what Bo Dukes told you previously, what did you do, if anything?
That day we went to he actually took us out to the orchard. He identified the initial location of where he dumped Miss Grinstead's body in the orchard adjacent. It wasn't in the pine tree grove originally, it was adjacent on the backside of the pecan orchard in a tall set of grass, knee-high grass. He said that he couldn't identify the exact location in the pine tree grove where Miss Grinstead's remains were located. He could not identify it, but he took us to the general location about where it was. He identified the very similar location that Mr. Dukes had identified just the day before, so the similarities there. He was then taken back to the Osceola Police Department, or to the Sheriff's Office in Osceola, and booked.
Okay. And what was he booked for that day?
Murder.
And we've used the phrase booked, but was he arrested that day?
Yes, he was arrested.
Was Bo Dukes later arrested in connection with the crimes here in Ben Hill County?
He was.
Okay. Prior to speaking with Bo Dukes that Sunday in Perry, what was that particular investigation that you had on Tara Grinstead as a whole? What type of investigation was that prior to your interview with Bo Dukes in 2017?
Missing persons investigation.
Looking at let me ask you this first. Did you testify at the grand jury of Bo Dukes?
I did.
Did you testify? Sorry, should I ask that differently? Did you testify at the grand jury of Bo Dukes here in Ben Hill County?
Yes.
Did you testify at the grand jury of Ryan Duke here in Ben Hill County?
Yes.
Okay. So looking at Bo Duke's indictment first. The allegation alleges specifically that Mr. Dukes concealed the death of another when he did unlawfully conceal the death of Tara Faye Grinstead, a human being, by burning the body of Tara Faye Grinstead at a location off Bowens Mill Highway, Ben Hill County, Georgia. Prior to meeting with Bo Dukes on that Sunday, did you have probable cause to know that Tara Grinstead was dead?
No.
Prior to meeting with Bo Dukes on that Sunday, did you have probable cause to know that her body had in fact been burned, just been burned?
No.
Prior to the interview with Bo Dukes, or the statement with Bo Dukes on that Sunday, did you have the name of Ryan Alexander Duke?
I did not.
So the rest of that indictment says that he concealed that which was to hinder the discovery of whether or not she was unlawfully killed by Ryan Alexander Duke. Prior to that Sunday, did you have probable cause to believe that Ryan Alexander Duke had killed her?
I did not.
Second count of tampering with evidence. Before I move on, count one. I've asked you, did you have knowledge? Now, sitting here today, do you believe that you have all of the information as it relates to this case file and Ryan and Bo Dukes?
I believe so.
Are you aware of anyone in this case who had probable cause prior to February of 2017 to know that Bo Dukes assisted Ryan Duke in concealing the body of Tara Grinstead by burning it?
No, I did not.
So then going to count two. Count two alleges that Bo Dukes committed the offense of tampering with evidence. And it specifically alleges that he unlawfully and knowingly destroyed the physical evidence by burning the body. We've already addressed that. At a location off Bowens Mill Road, we've already addressed that. In order to prevent the prosecution or delay the prosecution for the offense of murder, Prior to that Sunday in Perry, Georgia, when you spoke with Bo Dukes, did you have probable cause to believe that Tara Grinstead had been murdered?
Yeah.
And prior to that, or sitting here today, having been made aware of everything in this investigation, even prior to your involvement, are you aware of any law enforcement officer who had probable cause prior to February of 2017 to know that Tara Grinstead was murdered?
Yeah.
Count 3, hindering the apprehension or punishment of a criminal. It alleges again that he did conceal and destroy the body of Tara Faye Grinstead. Again, and I asked this somewhat, we talked about burning it, but let me be more specific. Prior to February 2017, did you have probable cause to know that her body had been destroyed? Prior to February 2017, do you know of any law enforcement officer that would have had probable cause to know that her body had been destroyed? I'm sorry, what was that?
No.
Okay. So then moving to Ryan Duke's charges. Count 1 charges him with the offense of concealing the death of Tara Faye Grinstead, a human being, at a location off of Bowens Mill Highway, Ben Hill County, Georgia, which hindered the discovery of whether or not said person was unlawfully killed. Again, prior to February 19th of 2017, did you have probable cause to know that Ryan Duke had acted to conceal the death of Tara Faye Grinstead?
I did not.
Did you have probable cause to know that Tara Faye Grinstead had been unlawfully killed prior to February 19th of 2017?
I did not.
With your knowledge of the entire case file at this point, do you know of any law enforcement officer that had probable cause to know that Tara Faye Grinstead had been unlawfully killed prior to February 19th of 2017?
No.
And having knowledge of the entire case file, do you know of any law enforcement officer that had evidence to show prior to February 19th of 2017 that Ryan Duke had done anything to conceal the death of Tara Faye Grinstead?
No.
Okay.
Judge, I just want to confirm our standing objection.
There's no,
Now, count 2 specifically alleges that Ryan Duke did unlawfully destroy the body of Tara Faye Grinstead, a human being, evidence of the crime of murder. We've already discussed those. The crime the accused knew or had reasonable grounds to believe had been committed by Bo Duke. So let's talk about that, because that's a new element. When was the first time anyone told you or you heard anyone say that Bo Dukes actually murdered Tara Grinstead?
When Ryan disclosed it when he was testifying on the stand.
And what year would that have been?
Last year?
2022?
Correct.
And-
I'm not sure the exact day, but
That's
last year.
fine. And just so again the record's clear, what court hearing or what trial was it that he was testifying at? In what county?
Irwin.
So prior to the testimony of Ryan Duke in 2022, do you have knowledge of anyone ever saying that Bo Dukes murdered Tara Grinstead? Let me change that. Do you have knowledge of anyone having evidence that Bo Dukes murdered Tara Grinstead?
No.
Okay. Count 3, concealment of facts. Again, that he did knowingly and willfully conceal and cover up the location of the body of Tara Faye Grinstead, a material fact in the missing persons investigation. Prior to February 19th of 2017, was this a missing persons investigation?
It was.
Okay. And prior to February 19th of 2019, did you have any knowledge that gave you probable cause that Ryan Duke had participated in burning the body of Tara Faye Grinstead?
No.
Are you, having knowledge of the entire case file at this point, are you aware of any law enforcement officer who had knowledge prior to February 19th of 2017 that Ryan Duke had participated in burning the body of Tara Faye Grinstead?
No.
Actually, Gary never drank that. I opened it for him because he only had one hand, but he never drank it. Sorry about that. I didn't think about it. And I'm almost done. Okay, I think the only element of these offenses that we've not discussed is the actual location specifically. The location of where Ryan and Bo Dukes showed you that Tara Grinstead's body was located. Were they actually able to point you to where her body had been burned?
No.
How was it that we discovered the area where she had actually been burned? Who gave us that information?
Randy Hudson?
And was that information given before or after Ryan's arrest?
After.
How far off were Bo and Ryan in telling you where she was burned versus where she was actually found?
100 yards or so?
We talk about it being Tara's body or her remains being found. Is there any DNA that has ever confirmed that those are actually the remains of Tara Grinstead?
No, they were too badly burned.
However, were there bones found in a location off of Bowens Mill Highway in Ben Hill County?
Correct.
And those particular bones, have they been identified as human bones?
They have.
And that information, did you have any knowledge to be able to find, did you have any evidence that would point you to where she was actually burned prior to February 19th of 2017 when talking today?
No.
Have just a moment, Judge. That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Make copies, man.
Thank you, Judge. Do you like this used, Judge? Okay, great. Thank you. Good afternoon, Agent Chanel. How are you?
I'm fine, how are you?
Good, thank you. I'm going to start right where the state left off, talking about the indictment in Ben Hill County. Okay, Ryan's indictment in Ben Hill County, not Bo's. The state asked you a lot of questions about the date of February 19th, 2017. I want to talk a little bit about that. That's the second date that you interviewed Bo Dukes, correct?
Yes, it was the second time I had contact with her.
Okay.
In person.
I'm sorry?
I talked to him on the phone previously, so that was the first time. The 16th was the second. His attorney was before the 19th, so the 19th was actually the third time I actually had contact with him.
Okay, and I'm talking about the actual interviews that are recorded. The first one was June 16th, 2016. The second was February 19th, 2017. And then the third was February 21st, 2017. Is that accurate?
Yes, ma'am. Those are the three physical contact dates.
Okay, great. Okay. The date that you chose to use in the indictment is the middle date, though, of those three, the February 19th date, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And before you spoke with Bo on that February 19th date, you spoke with his girlfriend, Brooke Sheridan?
Correct.
Okay. And when you spoke with Ms. Sheridan, she provided you the same general location that Bo and Ryan both provided you out in the orchard?
Correct.
Okay. And she provided you some names. She provided you what allegedly took place, similar to what Bo told you, correct?
As far as the burning of the body and that he was the one.
Okay. She told you that, well, and just for the record, you talked to her on February 7th, 2017?
Correct.
Okay. And when you interviewed her, she told you about Bo and that a friend of his had killed Miss Grinstead and burned her body, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And he told you that it was actually Bo's roommate that took her to the pecan orchard known as Fitzgerald Farms, correct?
I don't understand.
Okay. And if you need, I have your reports, so if there's anything that you
I
need.
don't understand the question.
Of course, not a problem. So when you interviewed Brooke Sheridan on February 7th, 2017,
Yes, ma'am.
she told you that Bo's roommate is the one that took Tara's body out to the orchard in Ben Hill County, correct?
I believe so.
Okay.
She just didn't have the name. She didn't know the name.
Well, and you testified to that when Ms. Hart was saying it, that she didn't know the name, but she actually provided you the name of Ryan Duke, correct?
She said Philip Luke, maybe Ryan, again, several different names.
She said...
So not for sure.
Okay. May I approach, Judge?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. It is Exhibit 1913, Defense Exhibit 1. Okay, great, thanks. Take a look at what I have marked as Defense Exhibit. Ms. Mullis, Oh, I'm so sorry. Here, I have an extra copy. If you take a look at the bottom of that page and see if that refreshes your memory. So Brooke Sheridan provided you of two names,
Correct.
said maybe Brad Luke or Ryan Duke.
Correct.
Okay. And she told you that the weekend of Ms. Grinstead's appearance, that this happened that weekend, and that there was a party, and that this Brad Luke or Ryan Duke was Bo's roommate at the time, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Does this report look like a fair and accurate depiction of your Exhibit 1913 from the case file?
Yes.
Okay. Judge, I just moved to admit this. It's Defense Exhibit 1.
You object?
I don't, no, sir.
Mine is admitted.
Thank you. Okay, so on February 7th, 2017, you had information that, that a Brad Luke or a Ryan Duke was Bo Duke's roommate, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And that this was the person that was alleged to have taken Ms. Grinstead's body out to the orchard in Ben Hill County, correct?
Yes.
The similar location to what Brooke took you out to view, correct?
Correct. She took me to the same location that Bo had taken her to.
Okay. And you later, I know you testified when Ms. Hart said that it was in the proximity of where Ryan and Bo also took you.
Correct.
Okay. So Brooke, Bo, and Ryan all took you to the same general location, and that was not where Ms. Grinstead's alleged body was found.
Correct. Brooke took us to a location on the outside of the Pine Tree Grove. Ryan and Bo took us inside the Pine Tree Grove.
Okay. And Brooke told you that this pecan orchard was known as Fitzgerald Farms. Okay, and that her body was seen out there, and that he panicked, and that Bo helped Ryan move her body deeper into the woods, correct?
Correct.
And that after moving her body, Dukes and his roommate, alleged to be either Luke or Duke, piled pecan wood on top of the body and burned it, correct?
Correct.
Bo said he had visited the location several times where her body was burned.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that he believed that her body had been dropped after Ryan had taken the truck without permission, correct?
She believed that the body had been dropped there after Bo's truck was taken?
Yes.
Yes.
By Ryan?
Yes.
Okay. And Dukes also told you, Brooke told you that Dukes said his uncle was having an affair with Grinstead, and that's why he didn't want to come forward.
Correct.
Because he was afraid of the connection that would be made?
Correct.
Okay. Now, in that report, you noted that, and this is on the second page of it for your reference, it's the second paragraph, the last 3 lines. It says it should be noted Connor was interviewed by Special Agent Leah Leitner multiple times, and his DNA was obtained. However, he denied ever having a relationship with Grinstead. Do you remember that?
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So when Miss Sheridan told you about the name Bobby Connor, you went back and you searched and you found a summary where he had been interviewed, correct?
Right, I searched Bobby Connor.
Okay. And so because his information had been entered into this identifier system, you were able to pull up that report?
Right, I was able to see that Leah had just interviewed him and obtained his DNA. And I could also see the DNA from the crime and show that that name had been identified as a name tested for DNA against him.
Okay. So based on this report and what Ms. Sheridan told you, you thought it was important to go and search for Bobby Connor's name to see if there was prior investigation, correct?
Correct. Just because that had been mentioned, just wanted to make sure that that particular part of the lead had been followed out, and it was.
Okay. Did you search for a Brad Luke or a Ryan Duke in the case file at that point in time?
I'm fairly certain that I did.
Okay.
Just trying to identify whether or not his name had been in the system.
Okay.
And I didn't see, I could just say that prior to their arrest, I've searched their names, and they were never entered into under ID data in our system that I could locate prior to his arrest.
Okay. And so, just to be clear, that was February 7th, 2017 now?
Yes, ma'am.
That all
That's the
happened.
day I did use this.
Okay.
Now, the checking of that lead would have not probably been that day, it would have been a day or two after.
Okay.
I completed this summary on February the 15th, so sometime between February the 7th and February the 15th, when I actually completed this summary, that's when I would have identified that.
Okay, and I'm glad you mentioned that. I actually want to ask you something about that. Where you got that information about February 15th, is that the last page of this document, page 3? Okay. And that last page, it's got your initials on it as well?
Correct.
And then it's got, it looks like, I'm guessing, and so please correct me if I'm wrong, the JS is who typed this? Is that because you typed this?
Correct. So in our system, whenever we approve a summary, as the summary agent, so there's 4 different tiers of approval. There's the summary agent, who's the person who actually created the summary. And so, but because I'm the case agent, I don't have to click off on the summary agent. So I would check off the case agent box. That then sends an approval to the supervisor in the office, which Todd Crosby, that's AJC. That's there, that's Todd Crosby. ATC, Todd Crosby, that's his initials. So that's when he actually approves the summary as well. So when you look at this, it identifies that I'm the case agent, I'm the one that actually clicked the summary box and completed the summary, which is what the JS is for. So we also will dictate cases.
Okay.
And the secretary will type them up. However, I type up my own summary. So in this particular case, I typed this summary, it's got my initials on there, that's the day I typed it, that's the day it was approved, was the 15th. My initials, I'm not sure what day Todd approved it.
Okay.
You have to go on the agenda and actually see what day that was.
Okay. But from this document, we can tell that you are the agent that conducted the interview, you're the agent that typed the summary, and that you've reviewed it, and that's evidenced by your initials, correct?
Correct.
And we can also tell that Agent Crosby has also reviewed it, and that's evidenced by his initials, correct?
Yes.
Okay. But we just can't tell when he did that.
Yeah, I can look it up in GenNet, but I can't look it up just looking at this particular.
Okay. And on the same page, you'll see something that says attachments. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, but that tells us that there was an audio recording of this, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And that's what's visually attached to the case file.
Okay. And so since the ID data is entered here, this is the first time that Ms. Sheridan's information was entered into the system now.
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
So this is the first time I would have collected it.
Okay. All right. So that is what information you knew on February 7th, 2017. I want to talk a little bit about what Mr. Bo Dukes, told you on February 19th, 2017, okay? On that day, he also told you, very similar to what Brooke told you, that his roommate had taken his truck without permission now, correct? Okay, and he told you that his roommate had Ryan Duke, he told you his name was Ryan Duke, just like Brooke told you, that he had taken his truck, and moved Ms. Grinstead's body into the Fitzgerald orchard. Okay, so he told you that the body had been moved from one location within the orchard back to another location within the orchard, correct?
No, it was, so originally the body was moved to, it wasn't in the orchard, there was like tall grass on the back side of the orchard. And he said that when he first saw the body there, that it was in that tall grass adjacent to the orchard.
Okay. And thank you for clarifying that. And when I say orchard, I'm talking about within the county of Ben Hill.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So Brooke told you that that Ryan had moved Ms. Grinstead's body to Fitzgerald, to Ben Hill County, in the truck, and Bo told you that as well.
Yes.
So Bo corroborated what Ms. Sheridan had told you.
Yes.
Okay. And he corroborated the location of where her body was originally, and then where it was also moved to.
Not that day on the 19th. He showed us on the 21st.
Okay. But he told you on the 19th that the body had been moved.
Correct.
He just didn't actually physically show you.
Correct.
Okay. So that piece of information was then corroborated on the 19th.
Yes.
Okay. And the fact that that Ryan was his roommate, that was also corroborated on the 19th?
Yeah, he said it was his roommate.
Okay. And that her body had been burned, that was also corroborated on the 19th?
Correct.
Okay.
And that's when I showed him a picture of the orchard.
Okay. When you showed Bo a picture of the orchard, right? Okay, great, thank you. All right, I'm going to go back to the beginning. I wanted to pick up where the state left off, but let me go back to the beginning. This case file. So I know that you've testified previously, and you were asked some questions here today and said that you didn't remember when you became the lead case agent. If you testified at a prior hearing that you became the case agent on April 20th, 2019, would that be accurate?
2009.
2009. Thank you. That was a big difference. April 20th, 2009. Does that sound about when you became the case agent?
Yeah, I know it was in 2009. I may be more familiar with it prior to, but yeah, sometime in 2009.
Okay. And you explained at that point that there had been 2 prior case agents, I believe, Dominic Turner and Leah Leitner?
Yes.
Okay. And You also explained, and this was at Bo's trial, and for the record, it's at page 564 of his trial testimony, that prior to taking the case over from Ms. Leitner, you had actually conducted some interviews with her, and you'd also done some swabbing.
A couple, yes.
Okay. And you said that you did that with Agent Leitner, and you also did it with Agent Rothwell?
Yeah, I remember one time particularly we went to Tifton.
Okay.
And Leah was conducting an interview, and I think they obtained a DNA swab. This is because she was pregnant at the time, so I think, again, I'm speculating that during the time that she would be out on her leave for pregnancy, that I would then follow up leads as they came along. And so I think they wanted to try to maybe start familiarizing me with some of the things that were going on at the time.
Okay.
But this was prior to me becoming the case agent.
About how long do you think you were doing that, working with her? If you took the case over April 20th, 2009, about when do you think you'd been on for a year, 6 months? I mean, about how long?
Well, I came on, I didn't start actually doing investigative leads until December of 2007, so it would have been sometime between December of 2007 and sometime in 2008 after she became pregnant.
Okay, so during that time period of 07, 08, you were doing some of the work with her, you were working with her?
A little bit.
Do you remember any of the people that you interviewed?
Yeah.
Would there be any way that that was noted on any of the files if you had been present for the interviews?
If Leah would have been the case agent, so I didn't do the actual dictation, so if Leah would have noted it in an investigative summary that would have said basically on such and such a date and time, and such a location, Agent Leah Leitner and Special Agent Jason Chanel were located at the law for the purpose of the interview. I wouldn't have had to approve it,
Okay.
nor have to do anything with the summary. That just would have been her notation of whatever she placed into the summary.
Okay, so there's nothing official that's required to document who else is present for that?
The case agent would have documented that, yes ma'am.
Okay. And did you all regularly talk about interviews that were done and leads on the case?
Not a lot, man.
Okay.
I mean, I was a new agent, so I was being handed new case after new case after new case at the time and stayed relatively busy myself, so it would have just been when there would have been an availability. I don't recall doing a lot of work on the case prior to. Maybe there was only one other time prior to that when I was a deputy, I actually did a summary with another GBI agent. I went with them and as they followed out.
Okay.
All right, hold up, Mr. Mayor. We're going to take about a 10-minute recess. You got that, you need to-
Hi and welcome back. Again, my name is Lorenza Medley. I am filling in for Jamie to cover this case, and I did want to just give you a little bit of a rundown on what they just talked about in the case. They're going to take a 10-minute recess, as you heard. So they're still speaking with Agent Jason Stadell from the GBI, and he was just giving a little bit more information into adding to the story on, let me find my notes, Tara Grinstead's murder. So to give a little bit of a timeline, Ryan confessed and gave the details about the murder, which included Tara surprising him at his residence and him striking and killing her, and then giving the general location to the police about her body. And then they also gave some information about Bo Dukes and how, according to Shadell, he burned the body. And lastly, they talked about the transportation of her body around the orchard. So it was moved to Fitzgerald Farms, and Shadell gave a little bit of a rundown as to his role in the case as a case agent who sends off approvals and how he conducted interviews and summaries. So we will be right back with the case.
And that's all information that you knew prior to this February 19, 2017 meeting?
Correct.
Okay. And I know Mr. Bowden told us that you all talked ahead of that meeting. You told Mr. Bowden what you believed Bo was going to say at that meeting, though, correct?
Potentially, because Mr. Fox had said that his client wanted to talk about the investigation, wanted to tell us the truth. So I assumed that the truth would be some kind of connection to the case.
Okay. And you assumed it would be something connected to these other prior reports that we've been talking about?
I didn't know about those prior reports. So
Well, you
when
knew
you said about the corroboration, the only thing that I knew about prior to that meeting was what Brooke had said, what Mr. Whipple had said, and what Bo had said, and Mr. McCullough from 2016 on. Anything prior to that, as what we've been talking about, in State's Exhibit 1, I did not know about at the time.
Okay, so at the time of the meeting, you knew what Mr. McCullough had told you in 2016, what Mr. Whipple told you January 20th, 2017, and what Brooke told you February 7th, 2017.
Correct.
Okay. And you believed Bo was coming to essentially corroborate those statements.
Potentially.
Okay. And on that day, February 19th, that's when Bo told you the name of Ryan Duke.
Yes.
And based on that, you interviewed Ryan Dukes, correct? Ryan Duke.
Yes, he was eventually, yes.
Okay. And you interviewed him on the 22nd of February?
Correct.
And you got, after that interview, you obtained an arrest warrant for Ryan, correct?
I did.
And that arrest warrant was only for Irwin County?
Yes.
You did not obtain an arrest warrant for Benhoe County?
Correct.
And the arrest warrant you obtained was on the 23rd of February at about 10:30 a.m.?
Yes, ma'am. There were multiple warrants, but yes, I think those on that day.
Those warrants were all for Irwin County, though?
Yes.
Did you have any discussion about obtaining warrants for Benhoe County?
I can't say for sure. I think at that point, the case file, this is what we had, and turn it over to the DA's office to charge accordingly based on what we had.
Okay, you chose the arrest warrants in Irwin County.
Yes.
Did you talk with Mr. Rigby about arrest warrants in Benhoe County?
I know we talked about the ones for Bo.
Okay.
I'm not sure that we ever talked about the ones for Ryan. It may have been mentioned, but I don't know that it was ever said.
Okay.
For sure.
Did you talk with Mr. Bowden about warrants for Irwin County before you took them?
I'm not sure if I talked with Mr. Bowden, or maybe JT or then talked with Mr. Bowden. There was some discussions, I think, I can't remember if I told him or if JT may have called and said, look, this is what we have.
But Ryan was indicted right away, though, correct?
I'm not even sure what day Ryan was indicted. I just know that the day he was arrested, I can tell you what day the indictment was, for sure.
Okay. And did you talk to Mr. Bowden about any charges for Benhoe County?
I don't recall him.
At the time that you swore out the arrest warrant for Ryan, you had not located any bones yet in Benhoe County, though, correct?
No.
So the warrant we established for Ryan was on February 23rd. You interviewed Nelson Polk on February 24th at around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, correct?
That sounds about right.
Okay. And that interview with Mr. Polk was specifically to learn about this 2005 and 2008, these reports that were missing somewhat. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that was the essential, what we were talking about was the Garland law stuff.
Okay, the Garland law stuff, okay. And so the first person that you talked to was Nelson Polk, and he was a former deputy?
He was the chief deputy.
He was the chief deputy, okay. And so he had been someone that was very familiar with the investigation.
Correct. I've been around the Osceola area, and always been the chief deputy there in Osceola since my inception as an agent. So yeah, I've seen him on multiple occasions in Irwin.
Okay. And this was the first time you talked to him about this case, though?
I'm certain that over the years we probably had general conversations about the case, things that had happened, but
Okay.
I couldn't specifically outline a specific topic.
And you recorded that interview?
The interview with Mr. Polk, yes.
Okay. And he told you that day that Garland Lott had written out a statement that listed Ryan Duke and Bo Dukes as bragging about committing this crime?
Yes.
Okay. And that they had bragged about committing it specifically in Ben Hill at the Orchard?
They had bragged about, they were at like a house or a party where there was a bonfire and they were bragging about having burned Mr. Grinstead and go kill him.
Okay. And he said that they had gone out and searched that night after they received this report from Mr. Lott.
I believe so.
Okay. And they
Either
searched
that day or the day after.
Okay. Within the
Sure.
day. Okay. And they had a Ben Hill County deputy accompany them to this search.
Yes, that's what he said.
But the search was definitely back in 2005.
That's what he said.
Okay. And they searched off of Bowens Mill Highway, I'm sorry. Okay. Then you also interviewed Alan Morgan on, I believe it was March 2nd, 2017. Do you remember that?
Okay. The telephone, I believe.
Okay. And when you interviewed Mr. Morgan, he also told you about Garland Lott's written statement, correct?
Correct. I think, yeah.
Okay. And he told you that the statement was about Ryan and Bo?
It was very similar to what Nelson had said.
Okay. And he specifically remembered giving this statement to Dominic Turner the day immediately following the search in November 2005.
I believe that's what he said.
And he remembered some specific details, such as he called Turner immediately, and Turner had just made it home to his home in Perry. Do you remember that?
I don't remember it not being in my summary, but I don't remember that right now.
But Morgan told you that he was getting a statement from this gentleman, Mr. Lott,
I believe so.
and he told you that Nelson Polk went with them, and that they had called a Fitzgerald sheriff deputy to meet them as well.
Yeah, they met a Fitzgerald deputy at the line, I think.
I'm sorry, Ben Hill, sorry.
Or Ben Hill County deputy at the line and escorted them out there to the tower.
And Mr. Morgan told you that he then talked to Turner again, met him at the Senior Citizen Center, gave him Garland Lott's letter, and because it was in Ben Hill County, he left it with Turner. Okay. And he told you that Turner told him he would follow up on it.
Yes.
Okay. And Mr. Morgan also told you, well, you asked him, did you read the statement or did you talk to him? Do you remember that? Referring to Garland Lott.
Did Alan or did Dominic?
Alan.
I don't recall whether he told me. If it's in my investigative summary and you could refresh my memory with it, I could say one way or the other.
Okay. Well, and it's
I mean, if it's in my investigative summary, then I would agree with you.
Okay, perfect. And he specifically talked about the orchard and how Bobby Connor owned the orchard at the time.
Okay.
Do you
I
remember?
want to clarify, it sounds like he's asked to see this report she's questioned him about, and I would ask that he be allowed to see it. I actually don't want to clarify, I'm asking that he be allowed to see that.
That's not a problem at all. I have, let's see. You want to see Mr. Morgan's report?
Whatever summary you're asking, I'm certain that it's probably in the summary. It sounds familiar, but just I don't want to speculate that it's exactly what was said. I'd like to read it.
Of course, may I approach? This is Exhibit 1956, and do you want to see it? No, no. Do you want to see it? All right, well then. It's the last paragraph.
Okay. Whatever question you want.
Okay, no, that's fine. So do you recall him telling you that a written statement was completed by Lott and it was given to GBI?
Yes, he said a written statement was completed by him and was provided to GBI Dominic Turner on the following day of the search.
Great, thank you. And you also talked with, you actually talked with Garland Lott himself, correct?
Over the phone, I believe.
On-
I don't think I ever met him in person. I think I just talked with him on the phone.
And that was February 24th, 2017?
Yes, ma'am.
And he told you essentially the same thing that Nelson had told you and that Mr. Morgan had told you, correct?
Essentially, the stories were very similar, yes.
Okay.
I'm not sure about the written statement part. I keep thinking that he said that he told either Janice or Andy, and they wrote out a statement for him, but essentially a written statement was generated.
Right, and I'm happy to share your summary if it would help. It's Exhibit 1942. So just take a look at that, and then I'll try and break the questions down a little better.
Okay, this is Nelson's interview.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's 1943 is Garland. And just essentially, Lott confirmed that he was met by law enforcement officers, and he went out to the orchard that night to try and search.
Correct.
Okay. And then you also spoke with Janice Polk on February 27th, 2017. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that was in the around 4 o'clock. I don't
I don't
know.
remember the time. There's been a lot of summers, so
Okay.
you have to refresh my memory again with the summers.
Well, you classified this as a re-interview. Do you recall that, or do you need a summary?
I would have, yeah, with either one of the folks, it would have been a re-interview just because they'd already been interviewed at some point in time. So any interview, secondary interview, they were re-interviewed.
Okay. So confirming that they had been previously interviewed, but Ms. Polk, at that point in time, she confirmed that Ryan and Bo's names had both been given to Leah Leitner in 2008, correct?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. And she also confirmed that their names had been given to Chief Deputy Nelson Polk in 2005, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And she confirmed that their names had been given to Investigator Alan Morgan in 2005, correct?
Specifically, Alan, I think, before Nelson.
And she also confirmed that in response to giving these names, they all searched the Fitzgerald location near Bowen's Mill Highway, the orchard.
I don't remember if she recalled being out there, but she said that the area, I do remember her saying that the area was searched. I don't know if she was out there herself during the search, but I think she recalled that this area, she believed that the area had been searched.
Okay, and that's all I was asking. Another thing that Janice told you was that she recalled telling Connie Grinstead about this information, specifically about what Garland Lott had said about Ryan and Bo, correct?
I think so.
Okay. And she told you that Connie was adamant about following up on this tip regarding Bo and Ryan?
Again, if you have it in my summary, I'll be happy to.
No problem.
I just want to say I want to be accurate.
Of course, I appreciate that. Okay, this is Exhibit 1946 for the record. The summary with Janice Polk.
Is there a particular part of
The second page, the top of it. Just asking about Connie Grinstead, if she had been informed of this.
Yeah, she just said that she remembered telling Connie about lots of information.
And
There's no follow-up as to what Connie's thoughts were. It was just that she remembered telling Connie about it.
and these are not verbatim transcriptions, though, correct?
Correct. These are just summarizations of those interviews, and then again, there's an audio attachment, so the whole audio could be heard.
Okay. So if on the audio it says that Connie said she was going to follow up on that, would you have any reason to doubt that it says that?
Yeah. If it's in the audio recording, it's in the audio.
Thank you. So I want to talk for a minute about the grand jury indictment in this case. You appeared in front of the grand jury on June 3rd, 2022, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Who drafted the indictment?
The Fisher Train?
Okay. So you did not participate in the drafting of the indictment?
No.
And were you part of a meeting after the verdict in Irwin County where this indictment was discussed?
No.
No, you were not present at that?
No.
Were you present in the courtroom the day the verdict was rendered?
No.
Did you watch any, since, I know that you were sequestered, but since then, have you watched any of the trial in Irwin County for Ryan?
No.
Have you read any of the testimony or reports or anything about it?
No.
So did you listen, so after the sequestration was over, and you were allowed to listen, did you listen when Ms. Hart argued that Mr. Duke could not be charged in Ben Hill because of the statute of limitations?
No. Again, I listened, when my testimony was concluded, I left the courthouse.
Okay.
I don't believe I stayed around too much longer, and I know I wasn't anywhere in Irwin County when the verdict was read.
Did you ever listen to any of Ryan's testimony after the fact?
I did.
Okay. So you heard, during his cross-examination, you heard Ms. Hart say, you already know you can't be prosecuted in Ben Hill County anymore, don't you?
The words sound familiar, yeah.
And also, you remember her, I objected, and, I'm sorry, I didn't object, Mr. Gibbs objected, and Ms. Hart said if he knows he cannot be prosecuted anymore because of the statute of limitations, that's what I'm asking him about. And the judge allowed it. Do you remember that?
Again, it may have been said, I can't say 100% for certain.
And then Ms. Hart said, asked Mr. Duke, you didn't know that, as far as didn't know that he could not be prosecuted any further here in Ben Hill County.
Again,
You don't remember that? Okay. Do you remember her arguing it's the law? We can argue the law. It's a fact that he can't be charged in Ben Hill. That's a proper statement of the law. Nothing prevents us from arguing the law. Do you remember that? Do you remember, did you watch any of the closing arguments?
I think I watched Mr. Rigby's closing arguments.
Okay.
And then at that moment, I think is when I actually left the courthouse.
Okay. So then you remember during Mr. Rigby's closing arguments that Ms. Hart, right before it, argued that it's a proper statement of the law that he can't be charged because of the statute of limitations, and that the jury should be charged on that he cannot be charged for concealing a death in Ben Hill.
I can't remember. I don't remember. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's okay. Are you aware of any of those comments, or were you aware of any of those comments prior to testifying in front of the grand jury on June 3rd, here?
I recall the one statement about the not being charged for statute.
Okay.
That's about the only thing I can just remember.
Okay.
About that particular line of questioning.
Okay. When were you subpoenaed to testify in front of the grand jury here?
Yes.
And when were you subpoenaed? When did you receive your subpoena?
I don't know the exact day, maybe about a week or two before the grand jury.
Okay. When did you first find out that the case was being presented to the Ben Hill grand jury?
This was several days, maybe a day or two after the verdict was read.
Okay. And how did you find out about it?
I believe Agent Rockwell and I talked about it on the telephone. We were talking on the phone, and he mentioned something about there's the potential of another indictment in Ben Hill County was when it first was brought to me. And then I think either Mr. Rigby or Ms. Hart talked to me maybe after that and said that they would be pursuing indictments in Ben Hill County, and just to clear my calendar if possible for a subpoena to be coming.
Okay. And did they tell you what the charges would be forthcoming?
I believe initially they were very similar to the charges that Bo had been charged with.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I didn't know the specifics until we actually did the grand jury and Mr. Rigby read the indictment to the grand jury.
Okay, that's my next question. When did you first read the indictment? It was in front of the grand jury?
Right. He read it to the grand jury. That was my first contact about the whole, what was in the indictments, all the way through.
So the first that you heard the dates that were used in the indictment, specifically the February 19th, 2017 date as the tolling date, the first time you heard about that was when it was read in front of the grand jury?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure the exact wording that was used during talking about the dates and things like that. I think the only thing I remember is about dates is that Ryan had mentioned something on the stand about, or admitted on the stand that he was the one that participated in this. I'm not sure about the dates.
Okay. Do you remember prior to that indictment being read in front of the grand jury, do you remember discussing that the February 19th, 2017 date would be the one that was used in the indictment for the date that the crime was unknown until?
Maybe.
Okay.
Again, I can't say for sure about, I mean, these are conversations over a year ago. I just showed up and told the same story that I'm telling you today as to what happened.
Okay.
So I can't tell you exactly facts, times, days.
You testified, you were the prosecutor for Bo Duke's indictment in, let's see, June 19th, 2017 here in Ben Hill?
Yes.
Okay. And in that indictment, it's...
Hi, I would like to toss to the newscast. Our newscast is going to be coming up at 4 o'clock. Stay tuned at 4, 5, 6, and 11 to get more newscasts. We will still be covering this case throughout the evening. Thank you so much for watching and keeping up with the case. My name is Lorenza Medley, and you guys have a good day.
2, testing 1 2. Hello, hello, testing 1 2 3, testing 1 2 3. Where is my water bottle?
I'm testing 1 2, but I can't get my little clip on. Yesterday I did it, but I can't seem to get it on today.
I lost my water bottle. It must be a rain. It must be a rainy day.
Why can't I get my clip on? Y'all, I can't get my clip on.
Thirsty.
I can't get this clip on, y'all. Somebody come and assist. I can't get the clip on to clip. Yesterday I did it, but I can't do it today. Because I had to turn it.
Come and call her.
Can somebody come and help me with my clip, please?
What did Brooke Sheridan tell you, if anything?
Here.
It's being weird again.
Okay. So I need to go just that direction.
So like.
No.
Oh no, I'm just gonna turn it whenever it is. This way?
Oh, you just do it that way without taking it off. See, I didn't know how to do it without. Okay, just all you got to do is switch it. Okay, very good. Thank you. You just turned it.
Yeah, I just turn it now.
Oh my gosh, I've been taking it out and struggling.
You good?
Richard knew that. He knew that. Testing 1 2. Yeah, he gets the rundown. I don't need the rundown. I just need this. Thank you so much.
Covering South Georgia, this is WALB News 10 at 4.
And good Tuesday afternoon to you, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. The effort to bring justice to the family of Tara Grinstead is not over. Right now, the two men connected to her death, Ryan Duke and Bo Dukes, are in a Ben Hill County Superior Court facing new charges in the case. WALB News 10's Alicia Lewis has been in the courtroom all day listening to testimony. And Alicia, Ben Hill County is where the suspected remains of Tara Grinstead were discovered, correct?
Yes, Carla. Now, that's right. They're both trying to get the charges of concealing a death in Ben Hill County, thrown out. But their attorneys say that the statute of limitations has run out. Now, earlier today, a GBI agent, Jason Shadell, testified Bo Duke's ex-girlfriend, Brooke Sheridan, told him about the location where she heard Tara Grinstead's body has been burned. Attorneys are trying to show investigators had evidence before they had on record.
What did Brooke Sheridan tell you, if anything, about Tara Grinstead?
She told me that she and Bo had some relationship issues, and that as they were having these problems, I recall Bo talked to her about doing something terrible and ended up taking her to the orchard in Fitzgerald here and disclosing to her that he had assisted in destroying Grinstead's body and burning her body, and that he told her that he didn't do it, but he knew who did.
Now, guys, Bo Dukes has served 3 years of a 25-year sentence in Irwin County for concealing the death of Tara Grinstead, and also Ryan Duke is serving a 10-year sentence for the same charge. I'm reporting live in Ben Hill. Alicia Lewis, WALB, your hometown news source.
Well, the Supreme Court of Georgia has upheld the murder conviction and life prison sentence for Jazzy Huff for the 2019 murder of Zenas Lee Davis. According to the Albany Police Department, Huff, the owner of Jazzy Movers, and Davis, an employee, got into a disagreement over Davis's pay. Now, Davis was shot multiple times. The arrest of Huff sparked protest in Albany, many believing that the incident was self-defense. WALB is your #1 source for case coverage, and when you download the WALB streaming app, you'll have access to the latest information. Our app is available on most of your favorite streaming services. It is free and available on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon. Well, for many, Albany is known as the birthplace of Ray Charles, a former state representative for Albany who's responsible for helping to bring the Ray Charles Plaza to Albany, has sent a complaint to the city about the upkeep of the plaza. WALB News 10's Riley Armont details what he wrote in a letter to the mayor.
The Ray Charles Plaza was built in 2007 and has since been an attraction for everyone who comes to the Good Life City. John White, former state rep for District 161, says the area around the statue is unkempt and deteriorating.
That's a masterpiece that we have there in the city. And as I walked around, I saw the bricks on the walls, the seating areas. Concrete was chewed away, taken away. I'm not sure how that happened, of course.
In his time here, John White was the representative for Albany State University and contributed heavily to establishing Georgia on My Mind as the state's official song. So when he visited Albany a few weeks ago, he was, quote, hurt and embarrassed to find the Ray Charles Plaza in such a state of disrepair.
So I decided to write them a letter and share with them what I saw and question why is it in that condition at this point.
In his letter, White said when he saw the plaza, there was no music playing and several bricks were broken. Today, I went to the plaza, and while there was music playing, there were several bricks that were either misplaced or broken. During a city commission meeting this morning, Mayor Bo Duro had this to say about White's letter.
That goes back to the old saying, got one chance to make a first impression, and obviously the majority of the folks that go into the Ray Charles Plaza are visitors, and so we need to address those concerns, assuming that the city owns the plaza.
Says he plans to come back up to Albany to take a deeper look at the city, and he's currently awaiting a response from the city commission and the mayor. Riley Armont, WALB, your hometown news source.
Well, we've got rain on the way to South Georgia later this week, but for today and tomorrow, let's check in with First Alert meteorologist Tommy Owens.
Well, satellite and radar is going to be fairly dry out there, and that is leading to this right here, these fairly warm temperatures that are now taking over most of the area. 76 degrees in Valdosta, 71 in Albany, and 69 degrees as we get into Americus. We'll continue to see those temperatures stay on the warmer side for a few more days, but the overall picture shows satellite and radar getting those clouds in a little bit more throughout the rest of today, keeping it fairly dry for most, but there could be a sprinkle or two as we get down into Seminole County. County. Maybe one shower starting to enter into their region. Now, you can still see some sunshine out there, though, as you're taking a live look out of Moultrie there on our First View 10 camera. Not looking too bad. Temperature sitting at 72 degrees there in Moultrie, 73 in Fitzgerald. Douglas, you're at 73 as well, along with Thomasville at this time. Now, your planner will indicate a chance for cloud cover to continue growing throughout the rest of this evening and going well into the early morning hours, leading to mostly cloudy skies tonight and temperatures getting down only near 52 degrees, so not as cool as even where we were this morning. Now, as we move into your Wednesday, high temperatures get even warmer, 79 degrees for a high, still some peaks of sunshine, but then we'll begin seeing those rain chances grow as we go throughout the rest of the week. I'll give you more details on this coming up in just a few minutes.
Well, airline passenger safety and the health of the nation's air travel infrastructure took center stage on Capitol Hill today as aviation industry executives and officials testified before lawmakers. Ivan Rodriguez has the latest.
The aviation system is telling us something's wrong, and we need to listen.
Federal aviation officials on Capitol Hill Tuesday answering questions from lawmakers after 2 runway misses in 3 weeks in New York and Texas.
Southwest aboard. FedEx is on the go.
The panelists have legitimate concerns about predictability and agility of the FAA.
Funding for the FAA is up for reauthorization by Congress this year. The FAA says U.S. aviation continues to be the safest in the world, but they need more money for new technology, training, and hiring more pilots. Industry groups agree.
It takes constant improvement to get to be the best. It takes constant improvement to stay the best.
A major tool used to learn about aviation incidents and how to avoid them is the cockpit voice recorders. The National Transportation Safety Board told the committee that the voice recordings were unavailable from the near miss this weekend in Austin. Voice recorders in U.S. cockpits only hold 2 hours worth of data and continuously overwrite older data. The NTSB said they have continuously asked that the length be extended to 25 hours like European airlines.
And with this FAA reauthorization bill, we have an opportunity to remain the best, to constantly get better, to avoid complacency, and to make sure we never fall behind.
In Atlanta, I'm Ivan Rodriguez.
And while Tuesday's hearing on aviation safety was underway, San Diego International Airport confirmed a fire aboard a United flight bound for Newark, New Jersey, that forced the plane to turn back shortly after takeoff. 4 passengers were hospitalized with injuries. Well, there's a buzz of excitement as Beyonce's tickets go on sale, but with massive ticket sales and several tour dates, there's bound to be some scams to watch out for. Those scams just ahead. Well, Queen Bee fans are buzzing with excitement. Tickets for Beyonce's Renaissance tour went on sale yesterday, and there are growing concerns about both ticket scams and another potential Ticketmaster fiasco, like the one involving Taylor Swift tour tickets last fall. Now, in today's Consumer Watch, how to protect your money when buying tickets for Beyonce or any other live concert this year.
All eyes on Ticketmaster as Beyonce's Renaissance tour tickets go on sale Monday for the first group of verified fans. And with desperate and eager fans taking to crowdfunding sites to raise money for the much anticipated concert, the Better Business Bureau says scams are very likely. So beware before you buy into the frenzy.
They're ignoring the red flags because they just want to get those tickets, and scammers are taking advantage of that.
Meanwhile, lawmakers in Washington are all bracing for a possible repeat of the Taylor Swift pre-sale fiasco on Ticketmaster that left countless fans empty-handed.
We apologize to the fans.
And triggered a Senate hearing on the issue. The Senate Judiciary Committee tweeting at Ticketmaster, "We're watching."
First of all, there were fewer tickets to satisfy the demand. So that starts with problem.
Ticketmaster says demand to register for a chance to buy tickets exceeded the number of available tickets by more than 800%, but says it's taking new measures to avoid another debacle, saying it will use verified fan technology to make sure more tickets go to fans and not resellers. Here's what the BBB recommends to avoid scams. 1. Only purchase from venues or legitimate sellers on their actual websites. Avoid buying on social media and verify trustworthy resellers and vendors on bbb.org. 2. Watch out for fake websites.
So you think you're on Ticketmaster's website, but you really aren't. They'll copy and paste the same pictures, and they'll just change the words of the name of the company by 1 or 2 letters in the URL.
3. Only use protected payment methods. Don't pay cash, debit, or wire transfer, and opt for a credit card instead, since it may be easier to dispute fraudulent charges. For Consumer Watch, I'm Cole Higgins.
And according to the Ticketmaster website, the North American leg of Beyonce's tour opens in Toronto July 8th and closes in New Orleans September 27th. Well, taking care of a newborn takes a lot out of parents. You may have heard of mom brain, the general feeling of fatigue and forgetfulness that can come, I should say, with having a new baby at home. But researchers say mom brain may not exist. A new study even calls it an unfair label given to mothers. The study compared the cognitive abilities of women with and without children and found there was no significant difference. And moms in the study even had a brain boost when it came to tasks involving long-term memory and learning. Coming up, the threat of single-use plastics and how one community is using special tools to clean waste from a creek. That's next in The Circular Life on First News at 4.
And we're also going to be talking about where temperatures will be going this week and when we could see a cool down in temperatures. I'll give you those details and more coming up right after this break, so stick with us.